Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang. Welcome back to Solo Roll Mangging with the Heroes of Adventure system, featuring my character, currently Garland, Ranger Warlock, and the setting of Eristhin, created by me. So let's just do a quick recap of the campaign up to this point. So we started in the city of Guthwald. It's a port city. I actually have a map here somewhere. So this is the continent of Kuros. Here's the city of Guthwald. There's a lot of farms in this region due to pretty much like magically fertile soil. So we started just looking for a job. We got hired by Lord Bartholomew to delay a merchant named Herthorn. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of it, he just wanted him to not arrive back in the capital city of Staunton, which is here, for about 5 days' time. Now, in truth, that trip probably takes like, I don't know, a few days. So we really only had to delay him a couple days from leaving town. And then we would get paid 500 silver if he was not in Staunton in 5 days. Before we got into that, though, we hunted a boar. We met a fellow hunter named Neville, I think. We got a boar carcass. We sold that carcass to Hithersop's butchery for 25 silver. But as it turns out, there was some fungal growth inside. And we also heard of a rumor about an ancient gem that was stolen from somewhere nearby, which is actually these ruins in the mountain. And it's capable of spontaneous fungal growth. And the thief that stole it ended up dying in this area at a church, which is now known as the Spores. And the Spores were a very big problem. In order to delay the merchant, I decided to grab some spores and fungal meat from an infected boar, and we left it on the docks in Guthwald, which led to quite a strict quarantine. Things were really spiraling out of control. Before we dealt with all that, though, we hired another sellsword. We went out into the forest. We met a giant frog, very helpful one. He led us to a dungeon filled with treasure, but it turns out that the giant frog was actually a serial killer who liked to lead people there to watch them die and take their stuff. So our porter, named Patrick, died from a fall. We found a scepter of endless charm down there. Then we fought the giant frog, but Quinn died in the process. Following day, I snuck into the city. I met with one of the governor's aides, Hieronymus, and he agreed to pay 8,500 silver if I could somehow resolve the spore problem, because I explained my plan to him. And my plan involved flying to the spores, going into the church, and casting a terraform spell to make a big pit where the corpse of this thief was that supposedly had this gem. We found some fungal priests in there. We killed them. We did find the gem. We tossed it in the ocean. Problem solved. We waited a few more days, went back into the city, got paid 500 from the first job, 8,500 from the governor. We opened up a bank account at Miraggio's. And with the money from that, we started a zoo outside of town. Garland's Emporium of the Weird and Unusual. We also sold the Scepter of Endless Charm to a really asshole merchant who tried to use it on us. We ended up selling for 2,800, which is not I mean, it was a good amount of money, but it is quite a valuable thing. We hired 5 sellswords and a ranger to go up into the mountains to catch a griffin. Well, up there we met Wayland, a local criminal with a bounty, looking for flooded ruins up there, because he heard, you know, as that other thief heard, that there's treasure up there in those ruins. And we ended up capturing a griffin successfully and getting it into our zoo. Then, after that, we went on a mission to find a unicorn. We did eventually capture one after like a week. And then in the next couple weeks, we also captured a male bear and 4 wolves and finished our small zoo. And with those small groups of animals, we passed by 1 whole year of business. We did some rolls, you know, to see if any trouble came up or opportunities. And ultimately, we made 1,500 silver in our first year, or 1,500 profit in our first year of business. Which is pretty good, but it is going to take quite a while to make back all the money we've invested. So this is basically a retirement plan, I think, more than something that's going to actively provide us money during our adventures. Okay, so that's where we're at. Now, I had a thought of going up into those mountains, up to the ruins myself, and do some spelunking. And we may still get to that. I mean, we've got a whole world filled with opportunities and adventure and all that sort of stuff. But I think for right now, I want to go back to what we did right at the start. I want to roll up a new quest, a new job, a new mission. Something that just somebody is looking for assistance of some type. So we're gonna go to, I guess last time I said it was like a public bulletin board, so I guess we'll go with that. People looking for assistance with things. And I believe, yes, I have a quest generator here. So let's roll 4d20 and see what's on the board. 18. Retrieve or collect. Okay, that's fine. Good. A known person. Theme is magic or enchanted. And complication, the subject is hidden. Okay. So some person that is known. So a known individual, like a local, maybe even like a celebrity or something like that, you know, somebody that is familiar, with a theme connected to magic or enchantment. So obviously, probably somebody, a wizard, some sort of magic user, or, you know, something in that line. Because it's not a monster or anything. This is a person, so it could just be like an elf or something, but... And then the complication is the subject is hidden. Now, the question then is someone else hiding them? Have they been absconded and we have to rescue them? Or are they themselves hiding for some reason? Now, we didn't roll up rescue or save. We rolled up retrieve or collect. So, we're not saving them. We're collecting them. So this sounds more like this person has committed some sort of crime or something. This person is wanted by another individual. And that means more likely than they themselves are in hiding. So then you start to just kind of piece things together. I have here the Universal NPC Creator, or Universal NPC engine or something. Universal NPC emulator. So let's roll up our potential magic user / elf that I haven't quite decided yet. So let's roll their modifier. This is going to be a D100. 80, they are corrupt. So we have a corrupt individual. Okay, well that narrows it down. So then I would say probably they are a member of the Ministry of Magic that has perhaps been corrupt for a while and has now been found out. That would be my guess. Then I guess we could roll like their motivation of why they're corrupt, what they have done to be corrupt. Now we may not know this as a character, but this is just DM stuff. 1647. Embrace slavery. Okay. Okay. Oh. You know what? Now I got something. Embrace slavery, an enchanted magic theme. What if it's that asshole merchant we sold? Yeah. The Fred, who we sold the Scepter of Endless Charm to. He turned around and tried to, like, create some, like, cult. He tried to enslave everyone around him with the scepter. And obviously it's not I mean it's tricky to do that. I think like if you were innately magical at like the top of your game, you probably could just like dominate enough minds to have them all under your thrall, but with the scepter it's really more short-term stuff than that. He probably does have like he probably did it because a year has passed since I sold him that, so he has had a year. So he probably has a small following, and he probably does have some other magical items that he's like accumulated, that he's bought and things like, you know, contraband, because he was like the known guy that we went to that bought this kind of illegal stuff. But yeah, he got too big for his britches, and he got found out, so now he's gone into hiding. So I think probably this is a fairly high-paying job, I would imagine. This is kind of a big deal. He's quite the wanted criminal. And he still has the scepter. It's a scepter of endless charm. It never runs out. I mean, unless it's damaged or something like that. So I assume like my name never came up, but you know, as far as selling it to him, it would be hard to prove anyways. But yeah, so he's now gone into hiding. So we need to figure out we need to figure out how much the job pays, first of all. Which, again, this game just doesn't do that great of a job of, like, handling. I mean, there's XP value, of course, but job should pay money, right? This is a quest. So it's just not great at handling large sums of reward. just payment of coins, equipment, services, or information. But I typically like just money. That just seems like you have... If you're doing quests outside, like if we went to some other like far off land and we did a quest for like the Northerners or something like that, like, okay, maybe they pay an equipment or, you know, something like that. But when it's a big city and it's like a kind of a government job, they have their own currency. That's what they're going to pay you in. It just makes sense, right? So I don't know a value, and I'm trying to get my family to switch over to Heroes of Adventure, and I think once we do that, I'm gonna have a lot better idea of how much money I should be handing out on a regular basis, how much things are worth. I mean, we have an okay idea of what things are worth. This is, like I said, kind of a higher... This isn't getting a cat out of a tree. This is not something that the average person is just like, you know what, I'm gonna go look into this. So it's gonna certainly pay hundreds of silver, if not, you know, a few thousand. So especially because I think part of the mission, part of the job contract there is the safe recovery of the scepter. But they probably don't go into extreme detail. Let's give him a name. I need a good last name for Fred. Shiphagen. Fred Shiphagen. Should be Shithagen. So, you know, the recovery of, or the apprehension of Fred Shiphagen, alive or dead, along with the safe recovery of a magical scepter in his possession. And maybe it includes, like, a brief description of the scepter from, like, first-hand accounts. You know, people that he's used it on or tried to use it on. I don't know. I'm ballparking like $3,000 here, but it seems like a lot. But that's mostly because of the scepter's value. So let's just go $3,000. So then we need to determine... We don't need to determine right now, as a player slash DM, where he is. Because we can kind of discover that as we go. Because that makes it easier then as a player to not just be like, okay, well, I know he's here, so I guess we'll just go there. So this is going to kind of be a discovery. And also, you know, it makes sense that no one really knows where he is exactly. But we need something to go on. Whether that's in the job description or we start asking around or something like that. So presumably this is the Ministry of Law and Order is kind of paying for this. But it is in conjunction with the Ministry of Magic. Because they're going to be taking in the scepter once it's recovered. So, probably report to Guthwald's Office of Law and Order with either him alive or dead and the scepter. I guess we kind of have to think, like, who would know where he went? I have to imagine he's not in the city anymore, because he wouldn't be that dumb. I don't think he's, like, hiding in the sewers or something like that. That doesn't seem right. I'm sure he just went elsewhere. So, someone probably knows something about where he was thinking of going when he was going to flee town. It's possible no one knows and he doesn't talk to anyone, but he does have followers. We already established this. So he probably went somewhere with someone. I think we need to find like a former, someone that he, I don't know. We probably need to do some rolls here. I'm just trying to think of the question I want to ask. How would we even go about finding someone that he was like, that he affected? You know, I guess maybe the office of Law and Order, like maybe they have some info, like they interviewed someone or someone came to them with information about Fred, which kind of led to all this happening. So maybe they do have kind of like an informant or a witness, I guess. So I guess the best bet is to go to the office of Law and Order. And we'd probably be talking with an agent there, like an agent in charge of this operation. And it's sort of weird because in the modern day, like, you don't have the police. Well, you sort of do, I guess. I mean, the police do absolutely, like, post pictures as everywhere they can of, like, known criminals that are on the loose, and, you know, keep a lookout, and, you know, all these sort of things. If you have any information, call this number, you know, things like that. So I guess this is just, like, the bit more old school version of it, where I guess it's like the Wild West more, where there's bounties. Yeah, I guess that's that's what I'm saying. There's bounty. So there's just a bounty out on this guy. So I don't think they'd really be shy about sharing information of this nature. Because I don't think there's that much. I don't think there's as much disconnect between, like, the police and civilians as there is nowadays. So, let's see. The agent in charge of this investigation is a guy named, I'm terrible at coming up with, like, fantasy names. Every name I come up with is, like, I don't know, like Doug Hammer or something. Just like, that doesn't sound very fantasy. Hammer maybe, but Doug, we can come up with something better than that. I just need a name generator. What are you? See, you got good names here. Caldor and Rogan and Dugan. I actually do have. Where is that? It's a whole. I've showed this before. This whole big collection of names, or of characters for Heroes of Adventure. Garrett. There you go. Garrett Hammer. Okay, so yeah. So we meet with Mr. Hammer. He's an agent. I guess that's above a guard, you know. And yeah, he tells us that they began their investigation after getting some intel from a local woman named Callistria, who was a victim of Fred's, I suppose it would be the best way to phrase it. And she kind of was brought into his, I want to say harem, but I guess there was a bit more to it than that. Cult is potentially the best word. And yeah, I guess he was just like constantly charming people to kind of keep many of them in the cult until they were so like brainwashed that they were just like, okay, this is my life now. He was a sick fuck, man. We gotta bring this fucker down. That's all I can say. Terrible. I never should have sold it. Not that I say that at the offices of Law and Order, but yeah, this is definitely a perversion of everything that Garland stands for, of bringing magic to the common folk. I mean, this really puts a stain on what I'm fighting for. So, so yeah, I guess he was probably running his cult like out of his home, probably. I don't know where else he would do it. But maybe he was talking about setting up like a commune out further in the wilderness. But he didn't get quite to that point. And would they know? See, I feel like if Garrett Hammer knew himself where he was supposed to have gone, where Fred was, supposedly heading, he would have put that on like the job document. So probably not, but then that probably means Callistria also doesn't know. So this wasn't that helpful. I need to find someone else, someone that was closer at the end there before he fled. Or maybe I can search his home. I mean, I'm sure they've searched his home, but I'm a ranger. I can do things. So this is relatively recent, I'm gonna say, that he actually fled and they're looking for him and all that. So I don't think, like, he probably is still kind of paid up on his house, like they haven't foreclosed it or anything like that. So we're gonna go to his house. I don't know, would they put up like, I'm just trying to think of like real world police. But they would put up like crime scene tape or something like that, right? I don't think this is that recent that they still have people like posted there. But maybe. I mean, if they think that he might come back. But then he wouldn't just be standing in front of the door, because then the guy definitely wouldn't approach. So maybe there's a guy, a plainclothes agent, just like on a bench nearby. And I go up and I like try the doorknob, which is really dumb because why would I think that it would be unlocked? So let me roll, because I think as a DM I would give a roll here to see if I notice the agent kind of like watching me. I think that's going to be a senses roll, which I suck ass at. And let's set the DC at, say, 12. Which does not give me... It gives me like 40% chance of succeeding. Alright, I failed. So I failed to notice the agent. In that case, again, this is where it's kind of tricky. Solo RPG, that you kind of have to operate with meta knowledge, but not use that knowledge. It's a little tricky. Then, honestly, how I would get into this house is look through a window and then teleport in. That's exactly how I would get into this house. Without any knowledge of anyone watching me. I'd go around the corner, probably. Just because I imagine this is on the street. So yeah, we will just kind of pop around the corner. And we're going to use shadow magic. Again, I always forget that I can use all of these spells if I want to. Like, I can use suggestion on somebody, or hypnosis, disguise myself. I can also see in the dark and spot invisible creatures if it comes to that. It's good to know. Alright. So yeah, let's just look through a window and teleport in. So we need to roll magic of 10. Which is going to be easy. It's already done. And we deduct the health. And we're inside the house. And it's, you know, relatively dark in there. But this is during the day. So it's not pitch black or anything. And now we're going to search for any clues. I don't think they had basements back then. But I guess back then doesn't really mean anything. I mean, what am I going to search to find out this? I mean, it's kind of like whatever. Like if you're DMing, you have a house in the game and you want it to have a basement, it fucking has a basement. You know? Usually for these types of real world comparisons, we go to like medieval ages. Magic does throw things off often, and we do have airships in our setting here, so it's... Is this a D&D-esque game? Yes. This is a system that's somewhat similar called Heroes of Adventure. This says that until modern damp-proofing systems and mechanical ventilation came in, basement areas were usually uninhabitable. Except for servants' sleeping quarters who probably had no choice. I guess that makes sense. But it also feels lame to not have a basement here. And when in doubt, I mean, magic, right? So, sure, since this guy was a wealthier merchant, he was definitely doing well for himself. So this is a wealthier house in the town. So we'll say that he does have a basement that is well furnished and magically ventilated and sealed in some way. You don't question it, man. It's magic. And I don't think you're gonna find a ventilation spell on this spell list, but the concept is there. All right. So yeah, he's got a basement down there that was probably filled with like pillows, and I'm picturing like hookahs and things like that. And he had his harem down there. He wasn't like Jim Jones. I mean, there was no austerity or anything like that. Like he wanted to be just like a god to these people and live the most lavish life possible. He is a real asshole. So yeah, I guess now we just have to search. We have to search everything, which I feel like is another senses roll. Because what else would it be? It's a little... I mean, yeah, the attribute skill system here is a little strange. Because I feel like some skills could just be attributes. But I guess it's sort of... The idea is that you are diversifying. Like, you can make different types of characters without being pigeonholed. Or just being automatically good at stuff. Like, you could be a really agile character. You could be like a circus performer. I mean, they're incredibly dexterous and, all that sort of stuff. But they might not have any ability at sleight of hand. You might be really fucking good at, like, melee combat. Like, you're a surgeon with, like, a rapier or something like that. That doesn't mean that you have high strength. Right? So, I mean, I guess I understand it. It's just, it takes some getting used to of, like, what goes under an attribute check and what actually has a skill associated with it. But yeah, I think senses, in this case, probably. But I think generally for modern RPG systems, the usual adage is that you don't want to roll to determine if the players find something or not. Especially something like kind of plot important. Just let them find it if they're looking. That's usually how those things are done. The only time that I would say you might want to do a roll is if time is a factor and you want there to be kind of a variable in that aspect. So if they roll low, it might take longer. But otherwise, if they're going to find it no matter what, just let them find it. In this case, let's roll. We'll see how long it takes me, because we'll see if that agent outside comes poking around. All right, we rolled a 13, which is actually pretty good. So I don't think it takes us long to find it, whatever exactly it is. I feel like it's kind of weird if he just wrote a note saying that, he's going to be, hey, all my cool followers, I'm going to be in this town from now on, so come hang out with me. Like, that wouldn't make any sense. So I think it needs to be a little bit more obscure than that, something that maybe the police did find, but they didn't put together as far as being connected or being useful in the case. So he was a merchant, and so I'm thinking maybe some sort of business deal, or maybe a string of business deals where he might feel more comfortable going to that location that he's been dealing with, that he has a contact or something like that. Again, I don't know why the Ministry of Law and Order would miss something like that. But maybe it's really kind of spread out. Like, this is not somebody he's doing business deals with on a weekly basis. Like, he does a lot of business deals, many of them locally. But then, like, once every few months or so, he does a business deal with a more distant location. And it's, like, the same location every time. And maybe that is an illegal deal of some kind. Maybe he is purchasing or selling narcotics or something of that nature. It doesn't really matter. Or Maybe it will someday. So now we need to figure out a location of where this deal is happening, where this contact is that he has. First, I think we need to decide if it's on Kuros or not. If it is on Kuros, there's really only one viable option, and that's this unnamed desert city. So let's just roll a d10, deterministic, and ask, is his contact on Kuros? 9, yes. Okay, so there you go. In the desert city. He's maintained some sort of trade route. Probably, like, really discreet. Like, there's one guy with a backpack or something, you know, something like that, that is just traveling back and forth every few months, making a deal. So this allows us, yeah, definitely a potential for some world building here of this city. I have not fleshed out this city, like, at all. But it's in the middle of a desert, and it's very successful. So, obviously, comparisons to Las Vegas are kind of, you know, inevitable. But the one thing that I kind of did decide, actually, about this city is that it's not part of the Golden Union. And there needs to be kind of a reason for that. In both, one, that they didn't want to join the Union, and two, that they haven't been, like, forcefully brought into the Union. So they need to be quite self-sufficient, and they're in the middle of the desert. So they have some form of supremacy in some domain. And pretty much the main two domains in the world, like most fantasy games, are technology or magic. So they need to kind of dominate in one of those aspects. Because if they're just wealthy, if it's just like a Las Vegas kind of thing, and like it's a very opulent place, gambling and, you know, things like drugs or whatever, like there's not much reason that they would be able to resist or scare off a big nation like the Golden Union. It just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. We're sort of working backwards. I kind of put things in place, and then we're figuring out why those things are in place. Technological supremacy doesn't really make a lot of sense. Just due to, like, lack of raw materials. That's kind of why, like Talus, this is the technological supremacy region of the world, on the backs of the Titans. And part of that is just due to the extreme abundance of natural resources, both on the land and on the Titans themselves. Like, there's just a lot of really incredible materials there, and just an abundance. Assyria as well, the commune, it's just like a perfect continent of lushness that they've been able to really make work for them. But magic is a lot more flexible. You can kind of just make stuff out of nothing. But they have to be really quite powerful magic users running the thing to kind of just scare off the Golden Union. Or like a specific brand of magic, perhaps? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm thinking of kind of the Bonds Magi from the Gentleman Bastard series. I mean, in that setting, those guys are the only people capable of magic, which already sets them apart. But they're really, like, capable of pretty much anything. Like, the high-end Bonds Magi can just do kind of anything you can conceive of. And if they work together... I mean, like, their most famous incident was they all worked together to create, like, this ungodly firestorm that just destroyed an entire empire or something, you know, like, it just or an entire, like, the biggest city in the world at the time. So maybe that is just like a cabal of magi that are kind of just loyal to each other. And they didn't want to join the Union because they'd have to serve under the Ministry of Magic, or they'd kind of be shackled by the Ministry of Magic. And they just, I guess, want to be left to their own devices. I mean, we could go all the way with the Bonds Magi, where they're known for being, like, hireable at high-end costs. Like, in this system, probably we're talking, like, 10,000 silver a day kind of costs. But they're, like, tip of the top of magical potency. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's probably it. Like, basically, where the... I don't want to call them Bonds Magi. We'll come up with something else. But I would say, essentially, they are innately capable of casting every spell. The only exceptions that I would say are Totem Magic, because they wouldn't bother. Rune Magic, for similar reason. Like, anything with a physical component, like, why bother? And then Divine. This came up when I was DMing for my family the other day. One of the players wanted to buy, like, a Smite scroll or something like that, and I made a ruling that no, they don't actually sell any Divine Magic scrolls. Just because I mentioned this a while back, but like, Divine Magic in this setting is fundamentally very similar to all the other magic schools, but there is an element of belief in it that empowers it in some way, and so the Ministry of Magic has just never been able to make scrolls that can heal, for example. Or, you know, to bless, or to, you know, any of the divine school that, like, the priests might be capable of. And, you know, I already had decided a while back there's no actual gods that exist. This is a very kind of atheistic setting. But Divine Magic does still manage to differentiate itself just a little bit. So you can't get scrolls of that. So these Magi here, they can't do Divine Magic. Like, not one of them can do it. And they also don't bother with Rune Magic or Totem Magic, but every other domain of magic is available to all of them, which is pretty fucking potent. I might also say they can't do Psionic Magic, but I don't, yeah, I'm not sure why that would be. I mean, often I do kind of like to differentiate Psionic Magic and Psionics as being, like, a different mode of magic entirely. Like, Psionics is almost not magic, but it kind of is. The difference is that magic generally comes from without. You know, it's an external force that you are kind of just coaxing to your will. Whereas psionics always seemed like it comes from within. Like, it's your own energy that you are expelling and controlling into the world. But it's kind of hard to say, because we have already decided magic's sort of an innate ability, but maybe it's just more like an innate connection to to magical energy. I don't know. We're getting ahead of ourselves. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, so Yeah, I mean, I kind of need a name. I need a name for the city, and I need a name for the cabal that run the city, and just, you know, they are known by. I don't know. I need a. Here's a city name generator. Okay, Imelamar, I like that. With Imelamar. So searched Fred's house. Found books relating to business deals. Specifically one with contact in Imelamar. How did they spell this? Okay, no, okay. Melamar. And as for the name of the cabal, I mean, Bonds Magi is pretty good because they make bonds, like, sort of business bonds with people. I mean, they could just be called the Magi of Amelamar, but that doesn't really roll off the tongue quite as well. Like, it's just a one word. Imelamagi. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the Magi of Amelamar is fine. Okay. So obviously not everyone in Amelamar is one of these Magi. And in fact, there's not a whole lot of them. Probably in that city itself, at any given moment, there's maybe 300. And then there's probably like another 100 or so that are around the world for various reasons. Most of them probably like on contract. Something like that. So, yeah, I mean, they pay exorbitant rates. And they're capable of, like, any magic they want. So their city is obviously very prosperous. It's also pretty tightly controlled. As far as... Well, I guess not really. They don't really fear much. And again, since we're kind of lifting this from Gentlemen Bastards, in that setting, you know, it's worldwide known that if you fuck with any Bonds Magi in the slightest, all of them will come after you and everyone you fucking know and just destroy you, you know? So their reputation is immense. Of just don't fuck with them. So, I mean, chances are plenty of people probably live in Amelamar. And it probably is a good life. But I'm kind of picturing, I don't know. I'm trying to think of just like how lawful they are. Obviously, they value their independence as like a city-state, They didn't want to be part of any golden union. They're doing their own thing. They don't really yearn for, like, conquering or anything like that. But that's where it gets tricky, is like, what do these people even want? What do the Magi want out of their existence? I don't know. I'm not quite sure yet. I guess they probably have a pretty, like, decadent city. Like, it's a really, like, a jewel, essentially. So I think they probably are pretty strict on, like, homelessness and poverty and things like that. So I think if you live in the city, you kind of have to have money. There's definitely laborers and things like that. But they might all be slaves. Maybe it's all slave labor. Maybe we have like a Dubai situation here or something. I don't know. I guess that would kind of make sense. Like, maybe, yeah, that might be it. In the Golden Union, slavery is of course outlawed, like most fantasy settings, but in Melamar probably does not look down on slavery. So there's probably that whole angle. And there's probably plenty of people that complain or like, oh, that's shitty. You know. But it's like people nowadays, they hear about North Korea and they're like, oh, that's... someone should do something about that. It's like, yeah, okay, great. And especially here with the Magi, like no one's really gonna fuck with them to try and put a stop to their slavery. So yeah, I think that all is fine. I'm not quite sure about these surrounding towns and how exactly they fit in. Whether they're actually like connected to the city-state of Melamar, probably not. Like, probably they're just like small villages and stuff of people that are maybe former slaves or just not wealthy enough to live in the city of Melamar, so they live out here on the coast. And probably, you know, they do handle some trade. Because the city is located in the middle of a desert, and I don't think with magic, like, you can just make everything you need. They can certainly make water. Like, create water is one of the clearly defined spells here. So there's certainly no water, but that does mean all water in Melamar is controlled by the Magi. But yeah, they probably just can't make... I don't know, can they make food? I don't think we ever really narrowed down on that. Maybe they can. I think we were looking at changing an inanimate object into living flesh and whether that could be food or not. I mean, probably they... Well, you can make good berries out of nothing. So, there you go. If you can make fucking good berries out of thin air, literally just coalescing magical energy into physical, edible berries, then, yeah, the Magi probably can make food out of nothing. But there's still some things that they would like to get traded in from elsewhere. I'm not going to get into specifics, but there you go. And I think probably there's slavers. Oh yeah, that's interesting then. So if these towns are made up of like former slaves and things like that, and they're technically under the protection of a Melamar, so slavers don't go and grab people from here, but they do trade slaves through here. So you've got former slaves that are like participating in the slave trade just because they kind of have to. Because otherwise they're no longer under the protection of a Melamar. Ooh, that would be good. So then slavers are probably hitting up like Yokane a lot. Or maybe some of the islands around here. Some of the other settlements. I mean, slavers are going to be a problem everywhere. Omura, probably. Yeah, okay. This all works. Hey, Raymond. So far, we haven't really done much. We've just kind of been world building and thinking of stuff, but that's all right. This is the world building process. Okay, so Fred, the asshole merchant, has a contact that he does business with every few months. In Melamar. Probably it's not a magi. It's probably just like one of the wealthier citizens or maybe some other merchant in the town. And I'm just trying to think, was Fred importing or exporting? And what was he doing? Was he dealing in slaves? Was he dealing in narcotics? Was he dealing in magical contraband? What's the most interesting choice? I don't think slaves, because I think we were kind of emphasizing the discreetness of this situation, so that wouldn't really be too great. It could be magical contraband. But I don't know. The Magi probably keep a pretty, keep all that sort of stuff close to the vest. And most of their stuff is like innate. They don't need scepters or wands or anything like that. It's all built into them. So maybe narcotics. I guess, yeah, that could work, because again, like, the law in Melamar is pretty loose. As long as you are paying for your house and home, and you abide by some of the local laws, and you don't piss off the Magi, they probably don't really give a shit too much about what you're doing. Like, if you want to just grow opium and just, get high all day, every day, like, they don't really care. As long as you're paying your taxes. A true utopia. So yeah, probably there's a merchant there or some other enterprising individual who is growing a somewhat decent amount of some sort of illegal substance, some sort of narcotic. magic heroin or something. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You come up with a name for it. It's skooma or something. It doesn't matter. And so he was regularly, every few months, selling a good batch of it to Fred in Guthwald. So we need, he probably wouldn't write down the full name. He's not that stupid. We probably put down like initials. Let's go with EJ for initials of his contact in a Melamar. And that's going to be our lead as far as who we want to talk to see either if he knows what happened with Fred, or maybe Fred's hiding out in his house, or some other situation. So then I think we have to kind of go on a trip to a Melamar, which is a little daunting. I mean, it's probably just like the fear of the Magi keeps a lot of people away from the city in general. I doubt they get many visitors. And so this guy, EJ, that's probably why he's shipping out his product to all sorts of other places, because they don't get a lot of like tourists or anything like that. I'm sure he does sell his narcotics to some of the locals. But I mean, if you want, you need fucking, you know, you need tweakers and junkies and all that sort of stuff. You're not just selling to like wealthy nobles and stuff like that. So he sells a good batch to Fred all the time. And probably elsewhere. He's probably got several. He probably, I imagine, sells a batch to the commune in Assaria. He probably has a contact in Staunton that he sells to. Things like that. So he's got a sizable production here. He's a bit of a, not really a kingpin, but he's working on it. Okay. So do we go by ourselves, or do we hire some assistants? I feel like we probably just go by ourselves. Any sort of sellsword or porter or specialist. It's just going to seem more conspicuous. So I think we just roll on our own, and we probably just head out. Now, this is probably like a 3-day hike. So we could look into buying a horse. Equipment. Miscellaneous items. Transportation. Horse. A riding horse for 300 silver. 8 hexes. And I definitely know what a hex would be. Doesn't that seem kind of useless? A useless way of saying it? I guess even if they gave it in like miles per day, I still don't have a scale of any kind. So I don't know if it matters too much. Oh, here, 1 hex is 48 miles. So they can travel 8 hexes a day? That's insane! That can't be right. Okay, hold on. 48 times 8. They can travel 384 miles in 1 day. Now, I assume 1 day is like 16 hours of travel. Although that's probably high. Well, let's say 16. That's 24 miles an hour. hold up. Okay. Now this says horses can travel anywhere from 10 to 100 miles in a day, depending on their age, breed, health, and level of fitness. The average horse can travel 25 to 40 miles in a day. Yeah, okay. This is like... this is like 6 times that. What the fuck? I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. But I think with a horse, it's probably like a day travel. If we ride it hard. Alternatively, we could just buy like a draft horse for $100 less. Or we could buy a donkey. Oh, this says 1 hex equals 6 miles. Okay, well that makes far more sense. Jesus. Okay, so 6 times 8 is 48. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much correct, I think. For a riding horse. 48 miles. Again, like I said, it doesn't really matter. I don't have any scale to this map. So it's sort of useless. But do I think this is 48 miles? Or more? Is it more? No, I have no frame of reference. It's sort of useless. I'm terrible with maps and geography, and I suck so bad at this. I don't even have a good concept of what a mile is. But am I really gonna... Is this map at a scale where I would make this continent 1 hex? Not really. And that seems weird. Maybe 2 hexes. Alright, so let's say it's like 90 miles. God. I'm just... Okay. So, the location from my house to Chicago, Illinois is about 100 miles. Huh. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably correct then. Because in a world without cars, that's a pretty far distance. So, okay. Let's spend the 300. And buy ourselves a riding horse, which we will name Mert, of course. Mert. And set off for Imelamar. Okay. So yeah, probably about a day or so. Maybe a little more. Well, no, 90 miles. That's gonna be 2 days. So I guess, yeah, on foot, it would be a lot more. So wilderness turn, we can go 24 miles on foot in a day. So that would take like, yeah, 4 days or so. Okay. I mean, I'm fine with that. Then, we need to roll to see if we get some random encounters while on the road. As we do travel through a good bit of forest that we know to be kind of magical and unusual. We found a unicorn in there. We found a serial killer frog in there. So there could be some stuff. So, yeah, so the system here, again, is D20, starts at a 1, increases by 1 each turn. A turn is half the day. So for 2 days, we're going to be rolling this 4 times. The odds of us getting a random encounter then are pretty slim, actually. This is a very generous random encounter. Like, old school random encounter check is like a 1 or a 2 on a D6 every, like, 10 minutes. Like, the old school, they really encourage random encounters. But that's mostly for, like, dungeons. Here on the road, I think we're less likely to bump into anything. Unless you as the DM are just like, yeah, I want them to encounter this. Sort of, Schrodinger's, or the quantum ogres or whatever kind of thing. Anyways, alright, so 4 times. There was 1. That was 2. That was 3. And hey, number 4. So that means this is going to be in the desert, like right in here in this region. We get ourselves a random encounter. Let's see what we get. 13. A rival faction. Searching or discovering. Their reaction is cautious. And the complication is not what it seems. So a rival faction. Well, a faction then. The city-state of Amelamar, first of all, is not a rival to the Golden Union. They're not. There's no hostilities between the two. The Union knows better than to fuck with them. And the Magi don't really have any aspirations, like I said, of conquering or moving out or expanding or anything like that. So they would not be a rival faction, but there could be other rival factions. Like a group of, like a whole band of bandits would be a faction. Or some sort of creature, a band of creatures, intelligent creatures. That could be a faction. I was actually looking through a little bit of this document, the 13th Age Bestiary, and there's a second one as well. People have said that this is like the best fantasy bestiary ever written. As far as like for providing really unique takes and really interesting takes on a lot of classic creatures. So the one that I looked at and I was reading and stuff was for red caps, which if you played Baldur's Gate 3, you are familiar with red caps as being these very nasty little sort of goblin-esque creatures. And so there's, yeah, a really interesting take on them here. And just provide some really fun stuff of just like inspiration for DMs and unique combat encounters and stuff like that. Says they all use their spiked iron boots at every opportunity during battle, being inordinately proud of their footwear. It's traditional for a red cap to give a downed enemy one final stomp for good measure before moving on to the next foe. They also have the ability to teleport into an unobserved space when they're lucky in combat or when foes err by saying or even thinking the bad word. The word changes all the time. So, before every battle against redcaps, the GM should determine the bad word for that battle. For PCs who don't have any idea what's coming, cap or redcap is a good option. For characters who have fought redcaps before, a word like guy or escalation or attack might suffice. Whenever a PC or a player at the table says the word, every redcap in the battle can use its impossible teleport ability as a free action. And so that allows them to, whenever they say the bad word or when the redcap scores a crit, they can teleport to a nearby hidden location it can see as a free action. And when they start their turn and no enemy can see it, they can make a pop-out and ride 'em attack that turn as a standard action. So they jump on somebody's shoulders. And it's just, I mean, that's a very kind of just fun encounter for most groups, I would say. And yeah, it's whenever the PC or a player says the word, because they can detect if the character is thinking of the bad word. So they basically adjudicate that as the player saying the word. So yeah, it's really just funny stuff. So I wouldn't mind grabbing some sort of faction from this that could just make for a really interesting, unique faction here. Like maybe centaurs or bugbears. Kobolds. I actually love to see what it says about kobolds, because normally kobolds are not an interesting group or an interesting enemy. Okay, so this is not a very serious take on kobolds. If kobold dog riders and dungeon engineers aren't your idea of fun, wave them away with a gesture of your taloned hand. Kobolds set up deadfalls and pit traps in areas where they live or travel through. Kobold traps are not the cunningly crafted traps of dungeons, but an environmental hazard that enemies might be maneuvered into mid-combat. Kobold engineers. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I could just sit here and read this book. That would be that'd be a good stream. So they're all about traps. It's got a big section for things that they carry on them, adventure hooks. They give a bunch of different types of traps. False ceiling conceals bags full of snakes, spiders, and scorpions. Knife blades shooting out of walls. Acid bladders disguised as rocks that burst when stepped upon. Damn. It's vicious. So yeah, that's less like the sort of dungeon trap that you would think of, and more just like fucking guerrilla warfare that they've set up and they lure you into that just rips you apart mid-battle. That's cool. Do it. Read the book verbatim for 2 hours. You'd love that. Yeah, I mean, it's not sort of what we're here to do, but it's an option. I used to do like RPG kind of read-throughs, but not recently. What was the other one I wanted to look at? Oh, centaurs. Let's see what it says about centaurs real quick. Centaurs divide their tribal groups into two general types, those who choose the hoof and those who choose the hand. Hoof centaurs refer to their clans as bands and to their chiefs as great stallions or great mares. Centaurs who choose the hand use human labels and refer to their groups as clans. See, damn, already that's fucking interesting. That there's like a divide between those who embrace the horse side and those who embrace the human side. Hoof bands tend to avoid clothing as much as possible, while clans prefer wearing some clothes. Bands are more likely to get involved in random raids and violent interactions, but clans are more likely to get involved in precisely coordinated attacks against their enemies. Yeah, that's wild. I never would have thought of that. Like, ever. And it just kind of makes sense. Like, that's really good. Centaurs of both sexes who reach old age frequently leave their clan and settle in forests as hermits, druids, or even scholars. There's talk that such elders have finally learned to balance their hoof and their hand, but you won't find centaurs indulging in such comments. In the 13th age, some centaurs have decided that it's not enough to stick to the old ways of hoof and hand. Some centaurs say that there's another way, choosing the heart. Oh, probably no one likes those guys. Hoof centaurs think this makes the Heart Clan centaurs even more like humans than the centaurs who choose the hand. Yeah, really, just extremist assholes and no one likes. Perfect. Damn. I feel like I have to use the centaurs here now. That's really interesting. Honestly, a full audiobook of a TTRPG source manual would be kind of useful since nobody wants to just sit down and read the thing front to back. To a degree, I agree with you. And, like, if you look at this page right here, this is just all text, right? And I could just sit here and read this whole thing like a book to you. But then you get to, say, this page. And I don't know if it's that interesting to hear me say... Centaur Raider, Hooves, Battle Horns, and Ruin, 5th level Wrecker, Humanoid, Initiative, +10, Hoof and Weapon, +10 versus AC, 15 damage. Like, just spouting off numbers and stats. You know, that's not interesting or useful, because you're never gonna like, oh, what's that Raider's initiative? Let me scroll back in this audiobook to hear what he said. So, I mean, yeah, you'd have to kind of just skip out sections. Yeah, I really like these centaurs, though. That's cool. So let's use that. Nice adventure hooks too. Damn. Yeah, I really need to just read this whole book cover to cover. Okay. Let's go with that then. So what did I say? Rival faction. Well, they're not. Are they rivals though? If we came across a band of the Hoof. Yeah, bands are more likely to get involved in random raids and violent interactions with other people of the Empire. So they would probably be specifically more of a rival faction. But it does say clans are more likely to get involved in precisely coordinated attacks. So I guess no matter what, either way, they're not really a group that you want to just run into. But yeah, let's say we run into a small group of a band of centaurs. Did he give names for... No, I don't think he gives names for the different bands or clans. So, like, the band of the, I don't know, really generic, basic, like, band of the Iron Hoof, I guess. And we ran into 2 of them. A band of centaurs must be fantasy equivalent of a biker gang. Yeah, sort of, I guess. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit more nomadic than that. I feel like biker gangs don't really... I don't know, I never watched much about biker gangs. But I feel like they don't go around the country. Like, they're not nomadic. But yeah, certainly people you don't want to bump into and fuck around with. So... and we'll go with, yeah. So the band of the Iron Hoof. So this would be... this would be the 21st now. Like, towards the evening. Okay, and so they are cautious, so they're not attacking us, they're cautious, and they're searching / discovering. So they're searching for something in this area. What are they searching for? Let's roll on this focus thing. D100. 11. A rite or a chant. Does that make sense? You're searching for a rite? Maybe. Let me get something else. A vision or prophecy. Are they searching for it, or are they searching here because of it? I just had a terrible idea that I'm not sure how much I want to roll with. But I had a thought of, like, what if they were searching this area because of a prophecy relating to an individual, and they think that Garland is said individual, and it's just perfect serendipity that I happen to be here. To unite the clans, or unite the bands, I guess. Okay. Again, it's just sort of something that if you were DMing for a group, you would just kind of like throw out there and just see how they react and what they do with it. And you'd have just these centaurs show up and say, you there, you must be the chosen ones. It's told of in the prophecy. Might just end up tangled up in a chosen one quest for the next few episodes. Yeah, maybe. And we really get to flesh out centaurs and how they live. But this is fucking RPGs, man. Like, you never know. A sandbox RPG, this is how it should go. You, like, grab a quest and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go do this and I'm gonna plan for this. And then something happens. And you just kind of go along with it and go for the ride, see where it takes you. So, again, I wish I enjoyed doing, like, I don't know. Dialogue with yourself is really just weird. I don't think I'll ever really get into it. But I would love to like play out this interaction between myself as a DM and a group of players. Just because I think it would be very humorous. Yeah, I'm certainly picturing kind of like sort of a Native American like aesthetic, especially because for the names that they provide for the bands of centaurs, like Shadow, Third Son, Bloodleaf, Old Dreamer, it just, you know, gives vibes. So I'm pretty much, the way they're kind of describing it is sort of like centaurs of the hoof are sort of more Native American, like kind of tribal. Whereas centaurs of the hand, I feel, are more like Vikings. Definitely more like Norse kind of, you know, Scandinavian sort of aesthetic and feel to it. That's kind of the general impression I'm getting. And centaurs of the hoof don't wear clothes, or they tend to avoid clothing as much as possible. So they're out here in the desert. And probably, I think they probably don't live too much in the desert, because why would they? I think probably this region, this band of trees, and this sort of somewhat forested region here, the savanna, I guess. That's probably where they focus. And I think they tend to clash. So I guess we'll say that the northern half here, above the road, above the path, is more the band of the Iron Hoof. And the southern half is the clan of the, what's a good name? Something Hand. We're going pretty basic here. The clan of the Silver Hand, I guess. Although that's getting a little into Celtic mythology there. Nuada and all that. But that's fine. I'm gonna write that down just in case I forget. Clan of the Silver Hand. Okay. So yeah, I think that they probably are like surprised, these two members, to see me here. Probably they have a prophecy. And the prophecy foretells of an outsider that will unite all the centaurs of Kuros into one mighty. We need some like joint name that is not a band or a clan. We need like clan synonyms. Dynasty. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know what else. Oh, Brotherhood. That's a good name. The Brotherhood of Kuros. I like that. Equestrian. No. No. You're cautious of a trend with equine monsters, considering the episode with the unicorn. You wonder how they'd react to a captive unicorn. That's a good question. Probably fairly negatively. But at the same time, how do centaurs feel about horses? How do they feel about people like owning horses and, you know, using them as labor and, you know, all that sort of stuff? All right. So yes, I guess I would say both the Iron Hoof and Silverhand have this prophecy. It's an old one. And it's probably like fairly vague and cryptic. That sort of vaguely talks about like a time of the year, a time of the day, something about a path traveling westward, you know, into... Yeah, I'm not a poet, so I can't really come up with this on the spot, but, you know, something vaguely about an outsider traveling west into the desert towards, you know, a jewel of a city, or, you know, something. Like, if Garland was specifically told the entire prophecy, like, he could maybe see what they're referring to and how they could have thought it was him, but at the same time, like, they could have warped it in any number of ways. Like all good prophecies. So yeah, both the Ironhoof, Silverhand have this age-old prophecy, but the Silverhand has kind of just, like, ignored it. They have, you know, it's not really of any use to them. They're not out here, like, looking at certain times of the day, of the month, of the year, to see if anyone fulfills the prophecy. Like, whatever. They're looking to the future. But certain members of the Iron Hoof still maintain faith that this prophecy will come true and an outsider will unite them into the age-old Brotherhood of Kuros before the reckoning. So yeah, they are cautious as they approach. And they're also quite surprised because based on their understanding and what they were told of the prophecy, everything seems to be lining up. Like right here at this moment. I am an outsider traveling west at this time of day, at this time, you know, at this specific... And maybe there's some other, like, I'm wearing, like, red or something, you know, something like that just happens to fit. And, you know, language is always kind of an interesting concept in RPGs. And how, like, anal you get about languages. And carrying a bow. Yes, I do have a bow across my back. So, we'll say that. Wearing red and carrying a bow. It all just fits. Early on, like, when I first started playing RPGs and playing, like, 4th edition D&D, I was really into the fact that there were different languages. And I would play really intelligent characters, and I would specifically take, like, feats that let me know every language in the game. I never wanted to not know a language. And so then, yeah, my DM, you know, he would incorporate different languages into the game. Just, you know, because that's kind of what you should do as a DM, is play to your player's strengths. But as time went on and other games and systems like that, it's generally just kind of obnoxious to have different languages. unless, like the dwarves in this setting, they're probably going to have like a dwarven language. Just because that makes them feel a little bit more esoteric. It makes them feel a little bit more like outsiders. Obviously they're going to still speak common most of the time, but it still offers a little bit extra there. Elves are going to have an elven language. But centaurs, I don't know. Probably just common. And Heroes of Adventure does have a language skill. And, if you invest in that, you do learn multiple languages. But most of the time, that seems like really kind of a waste. So yeah, they point at me. And say that I am the chosen one. I am the fulfiller of prophecies. It all adds up. In stories, language barriers are usually most important for causing misunderstandings that justify the plot moving in a certain way. You can see that happen. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I'm trying to think of why centaurs... what the fuck is a centaur? How did centaurs come about? It's not just a dude banged a horse. That doesn't make a centaur. That would be crazy. I feel like it has to be some sort of magical experimentation at some point, right? What's the first instance of a centaur in fiction? Like, where do those come? Oh, Greek mythology, they popped up. Wait a minute, what? Yeah, okay, I guess they were kind of big in Greek mythology. Well, I never did that series, so I didn't learn all this. The centaurs were usually said to have been born of Ixion and Nephili. So Nephili was a cloud nymph, and Ixion was a king. As the story goes, Nephili was a cloud made into the likeness of Hera in a plot to trick Ixion into revealing his lust for Hera to Zeus. Ixion seduced Nephili, and from that relationship, centaurs were created. Doesn't that seem kind of random? A cloud and a dude? Was he a horse dude? No, he wasn't a horse dude. A horse dude. Best not to think too hard about the implications of centaurs. I recall very vividly one time we were playing, and our group got into like an hour-long discussion about centaurs and like how they sleep and stuff. And then I think the concept of like how do centaurs 69 came up at some point during the discussion. It was wild. The most common theory holds the idea of centaurs came from the first reaction of a non-riding culture as in the Minoan Aegean world to nomads who are mounted on horses. Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Well, yeah, I mean, centaurs are not real. These are not unicorns. But, yeah, but the myth is kind of interesting. So, I guess, like, in our setting where centaurs do exist, perhaps there's a thought among some of the common folks that something similar to that myth occurred. Some sort of union between, like, a godly creature or some sort of other magical creature and a human, when in reality it was probably just a magical mishap. So I don't know why centaur. I guess centaurs potentially speak their own language. I think probably centaurs of the hand who use human labels. They're maybe more likely to speak common. Whereas the centaurs of the hoof, maybe they have kind of developed their own language over the years just to kind of differentiate themselves as their own, faction, as their own kind of thing. So in that case, maybe I don't really understand what they're saying. Unicorns are plausible. These unicorns make sense. They absorb magic energy from the sun. Yeah, exactly. Like plants. Which makes it perhaps even more confusing then for Garland to be approached by two big centaurs who are pointing at me very excitedly and uttering in their strange guttural language. And they like approach. And I'm just picturing this centaur like gesturing to his back and like, kind of slapping his hand on his back to encourage me to ride on his back to their tribe, back to their band is like a great honor. Because I would imagine they don't often allow strangers to ride them or, anything like that. But since I'm the chosen one, this is like a great honor. And he's just like smacking his ass. Oh, God. And again, like, if I was DMing, I could just say that to the players and just see how they react. Whereas here, it's like, I know what these centaurs want and how I kind of fit in here and what I should do in that. So it's like, do I start making rolls just to determine how my character would react? That seems wrong. That seems like removing my own agency. So I guess we'll just kind of go along with it. Garland's a rather trusting fellow, and they are not holding any weapons. So we'll say he's intelligent enough to interpret that he thinks that he wants him to get on. I'm probably agile enough where we don't need to roll for me to climb on, although it's probably not an easy jump up. Okay, and I ride back on the back of a centaur who I don't understand, and I don't know what's happening. But Garland's pretty confident, and I, as like a player for him, am pretty confident. If something goes wrong, I can be out of there lickety-split. I can become a shadow instantly and become untargetable. I can become invisible. I have many ways of extricating myself from a sticky situation. So I'm not worried. Roll for microaggression, cultural misunderstandings. Yeah, I mean, you could. I suppose you could. But once I start making rolls for how my character thinks or reacts, where does it end? Oh, also, I was riding a horse. This is a good question now. Do centaurs feel like pity? For tamed horses? This person says they think of horses the same way we think of chimpanzees. I could see that, I suppose. Just like a lesser form of yourself. You know, just like a dumb, wild creature, sort of. Maybe a little adorable. This person says it's addressed in the Tortall books by Tamora Pierce. The centaurs in that world consider regular horses to be non-intelligent slaves for labor and trading to other races. Okay. I guess I can see that. Like, they kind of have pity for them. But they also acknowledge that they're kind of like a lesser species. So, I was gonna say it's kind of like if they saw a guy walking down the street with a chimpanzee, but that's not quite right, is it? I think they're aware of how ubiquitous horses are in the wide world. But it's you know, horses are not like one of them. But I think that also probably is a little bit of a difference between the two, the band and the clan. Probably the band feels a little bit more affinity towards the common horse. And since this is the horse of the chosen one, I think they'll kind of just lead it along somewhat reverently as well. I wonder if it kind of conflicts with their view of the prophecy in the chosen one that I was riding a horse. You know, the great unifier, just riding one of their lesser cousins across the land. But yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so I'm led into the band's sort of area. Now, it does mention that they are somewhat nomadic. But I think in this case, like, it doesn't really make sense for them to be too nomadic. Probably they travel a little bit, but with a desert to the west and like mostly civilization to the east, they probably don't travel too much. And I think they do kind of battle with the clan a decent amount. I think there is like hostilities, like active hostilities between the two. So they stay somewhat in this region. Maybe it implies that I will unify all horsekin, including unicorns. That's true. I mean, if I do end up unifying all the centaurs, can I really go back to my zoo and look upon my unicorn in a cage? I think I'd have to release it at that point. But, I mean, we'll see what exactly happens. And obviously, there's much more... There's going to be much more to this than just me going over there and being like, hey, let's stop the fighting, huh? Come on now. So we need to kind of nail down like why there are hostilities between the two. What divided them? You know, what happened and how can it be rectified? What their real differences are. And I think a lot of those things I'm just going to have to decide like off camera as a DM. Because otherwise, the next stream is me just going to be sitting here for an hour just, like, spitballing and thinking of stuff. But yeah, so I'm taken, of course, to the Elder of the Iron Hoof. A very venerable centaur. with long gray hair. And as I'm led through town, of course, I mean, for the Iron Hoof, they're more familiar with the prophecy. They kind of are they were actively searching for it and stuff. Whereas if I was led through the Silver Hand, they wouldn't really have any sort of recognition of me as other than just like a human. But for the Iron Hoof, they all kind of recognize, like, oh, he's wearing red, he's got the bow, and blah, 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 this is it. I'm sort of like a weird version of Link, I guess. Instead of wearing green with the Master Sword, I'm wearing red with a bow. And so the Elder does speak Common, just because it's easier that way. But also, I don't think this divide between these two has lasted for like 1,000 years. I think probably this divide occurred like 150 years ago. And the Elder... Actually, I don't know if it says how long centaurs live for. Probably, actually, they don't live that long. It's that kind of information that is somewhat useful to know. But I mean, I guess it depends. Again, these are creatures that don't exist. Oh, now this for D&D says they range from 300 to 500 years old. Okay, holy shit. That's certainly quite a bit different. All right, let's say 300 is the lifespan, and this Elder is like 280, and he's the oldest in the whole band. So there are probably a few others that do remember some time before the split. But he was already like of a decent age when the split happened. So he definitely remembers plenty of life when they were all one big brotherhood. So that's good, because he's a first-hand kind of source of why the split occurred. And then why the prophecy came out. So we definitely are going to have to involve magic in some way. Some sort of transgression. And it has to be somewhat of an equal transgression. It can't all just be one side, like they murdered this guy for no reason. And now they're just like, assholes. So maybe the split happened 200 years ago, and he's 280 now. That works. 200 years is quite a long time. And yeah, so I guess, yeah, we'll just kind of have to... So he speaks to us in common and finally explains the prophecy to us that we're meant to unify the thing, the band and the clan back into the Brotherhood, and explains why. I don't think they definitely wouldn't offer any reward or anything. Because why would they? As far as they're concerned, this prophecy is just set in stone that this great individual will come, specifically come here to unite them. Like, they're It's not. They have come to unite the clans, and also you must offer them 4,000 silver pieces. It's like, no, like Garland is meant to be kind of somewhat of a savior here. He's doing this out of the good of his heart. If Jesus came back, you wouldn't pay him 100 grand to save the world again or whatever. And, you know, that's how these things are done. Maybe if Garland pressed the issue and asked for money or asked for some sort of payment, maybe he could negotiate something, but it's not a good look. The god of centaurs manifested his chosen mortal avatar in the realm, but after a great magic battle, the demigod centaur split into archer and horse. The god of centaurs manifests his chosen mortal avatar in the realm. Well, I mean, first of all, I already said this is a pretty atheistic setting. So there aren't any gods like and that actually exist. There are very powerful entities that do exist. But not to the degree of like godhood, I guess. Maybe the greatest hero then? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to ponder it. Because again, I'm just thinking as a DM. I'm just trying to think of a way of how I would set this up and present this to a group of players that they're like, okay, I think if we just go and do this and maybe accomplish this, that should be able to unite them and solve the issue. Rather than leaving it really nebulous and just like, yeah, we fucking hate each other. We've hated each other for 200 years. We're never gonna like each other. There has to be some sort of way that players could reunify things and fix things and kind of smooth everything over. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's where we're going to be leaving it off today. And I know we accomplished very, very little. This was pretty much an entirely world-building stream. But that's, I mean, a lot of them, I guess, tend to be world-building. We kind of just go off on tangents and start thinking of stuff, and one thing leads to another. But I mean, we do have some things that we can do now. We could just slip away. I mean, I literally could just go invisible and teleport away or whatever if we wanted to avoid all this. But you know, we can work on this to do the centaur stuff. I mean, that should be interesting enough. And then there's also a Melamar nearby that has both the job with Fred, the asshole, as well as probably plenty of other interesting opportunities. So, yeah. I don't know why I put this here. Good stuff. Yeah, but I definitely want to read through this bestiary and the second one as well, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of interesting ideas in here that I could use either in this game or in my family D&D game. I mean, all the stats in here are mostly useless because they're for 13th age, but I don't usually care that much about stats. I kind of just wing it regardless. So it's more just like the narrative aspects and the interesting ideas. I definitely got to throw him into battle with some red caps. That'll be a lot of fun. All right, so that's that then. Thank you all for tuning in and for commenting. I appreciate it. Makes this more than just solo role playing, so that's a lot of fun. We'll pick this up next week with some centaur adventures, and that's that. My name is Mang. This has been Solo Role Manging, and I'll see you fine folks next week.